I'm Emily Mashak, and you're listening to Tuned In to NoCo, Town Square Media's show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. I'm talking today again with Kari Clark, the Executive Director of Alternatives to Violence, about October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So thank you so much for joining me again, Kari. And for those who maybe didn't catch you last time, can you just tell me a little bit about what Alternatives to Violence is and your role there?
Absolutely. I am the Executive Director of Alternatives to Violence. We are a local, and by local, I mean Larimer County, mainly Southern Larimer County, agency that provides advocacy, safe shelter, counseling, and education to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking.
Now, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. What do you think our listeners need to be more aware of when it comes to this issue?
Oh, almost everything. You know, everybody knows somebody who is a victim of domestic violence. You may not know you do, but everybody does. So we want to highlight how common domestic violence is and that it's more than just physical violence. I think most people just assume domestic violence is physical, and that is not all that it is. So it's kind of our goal to get out there and let people know what they don't know. Domestic violence thrives in silence. So to be able to support and help victims of survivors and to prevent domestic violence in the future, everybody in the community needs to talk about it. And to talk about domestic violence, we need everybody to fully understand what it is.
Right. And could you expand on that a little more? You said that it can be physical, but it can also be emotional. What are some of the instances and signs of domestic violence that people can look out for?
Absolutely. So, it's always thought of in terms of physical, but it's really about controlling behavior and other abusive tactics. And most of those start often before any physical violence occurs. So there's something that's really interesting to look, and this is radio and not TV, so I can't visually show anybody, but something called the power and control wheel. And it really talks about how the small things that you don't think about can be controlling behavior. And that's what we need to watch out for ourselves and in others. So people controlling bank accounts, controlling who you speak to, isolating you from your family and friends, controlling what you use technology-wise, watching your phone, things like that. And those will go in often into physical violence.
Right. And one of the last times we talked, it was when the pandemic was more heightened, and you had mentioned that it was increasing domestic violence, especially in terms of the stay-at-home orders. What is it looking like now in Northern Colorado?
I'd like to say things are getting better. They're just different. So we are still seeing an increase over what we had been seeing before the pandemic. So we're getting lots of phone calls. We're not only getting phone calls from people who are victims of domestic violence, but we're getting phone calls from family members and friends. And that's actually a good thing, because that is spreading the word that the pandemic caused a lot of issues. People are seeing them, but there are ways that you can help those that you love get out of the situation that they're in. So we do receive quite a few phone calls from people who are a family member saying, hey, I think, my daughter needs help, or my sister needs help. What can I do to get them the help that they need? And what can I watch for?
Yeah. And going off of that, if there is a listener out there who maybe is concerned about a loved one, maybe they're concerned about their own situation, what should they do and how can they reach out?
Well, they absolutely can give us a call and ask to speak to one of our advocates for more information. And they can call us at 970-669-5150. That is a 24/7 crisis line at any time, or also visit our website at alternativestoviolence.org, where there are red flags. Something that we can help with is giving advice on how to encourage their loved ones to call us for more help. And one thing that we really work on from the beginning, just because somebody needs to be leaving a abusive relationship does not mean that they do. In fact, it's the average of somebody leaving permanently is 7 times. So 7 to 10 times it takes somebody to leave an abusive relationship. So what we really try to focus on is safety planning. If you're not willing to leave, and we understand why a lot of people find it difficult to leave, then let's safety plan. Let's keep you safe and find out ways that eventually you can get out of the relationship.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners, thankfully, may not be affected by this situation personally, but they'll be hearing this and they'll want to help. Can they volunteer? Can they donate with Alternatives to Violence? How can they get involved?
They absolutely can. Information on both is on our website at alternativestoviolence.org. We'll have a button up there right in the corner to donate, which is very important for us to be able to continue our work and to help those who are in violent situations and need to get out of them. And then we also have a space on there for volunteering. We are always looking for volunteers. We have direct service volunteers who go through a training and actually work directly with our clients, such as an advocate would. One of the most that we're looking for now is for our VRT team, which is our victim response team. And those people are on call and can go out on scene with officers when people have experienced violence or domestic violence and be there and help the victim. So we've got those, and we have some other non-direct service volunteer opportunities if folks are not ready for that. So maybe helping out in the office or organizing our donations, things like that. So always in need.
I know this might be a little up in the air, even with COVID-19, although hopefully not. But do you have any other events coming up or things going on that you'd like our listeners to know about?
We do, actually, and it's as much as I'd like to say it's up in the air, we've been rolling along this whole time. Some way or another, we have been adapting. And since this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we've had quite a few events because we really want to bring attention and get people to learn. Last week, and we actually had a little pet parade and had the mayor speak at the end of it, because pets are a big part of why people do not leave domestic violence situations. They don't want to leave their pet with their abuser because they're afraid the abuser may abuse the pet as well. So that was our first event. Then we have an event coming up this Wednesday, the 13th, and it's shining a light on domestic violence in our community. And we can find out more information from that at the website as well. If people go to alternativestoviolence.org and click on the Domestic Violence Awareness Month banner, there will be a registration for Shine the Light on Domestic Violence Community Information Event. And that again is this Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. And we'll start off with a little bit of DV 101 on informing people on domestic violence. We'll hear from a domestic violence survivor, and also have what we call Ask an Advocate. We'll have our advocates that work for the organization be on so that people can ask questions. And that can either be in person or by Zoom. We're trying to do the both thing to make it easier. In person, it'll be at the Realities for Children building, and online, if they just click on that link on our website, it'll take them to a registration and they'll be able to get a Zoom link to attend that way. So that'll be very informative. And finally, the last week of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we will have a little social media push. Wear your purple, post your pictures of you in your purple. So I encourage anybody who is on social media, Facebook, Instagram, to go like our page so you can get some more information.
Well, that is awesome. And I'm so glad to hear that you can have your events in person this year. And I want to thank you, as always, for coming on the show. Is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know?
No, I just appreciate anybody finding out what they can. And remember, somebody you know is a victim of domestic violence. So the more information you have, the best you could help. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men are currently victims of violence. So let's work our way that we can to get people out of those situations.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kari.
Thanks, Emily.
Again, that was Kari Clark, the Executive Director of Alternatives to Violence, talking about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. You can learn more about upcoming events, how to get help, or about how to get involved at alternativestoviolence.org.